Hello, I am the Script Doctor, and welcome to the channel. It's another chapter of The Mandalorian, or is it really? Chapter 11 is less of an entry to the Mandalorian story and more of a backdoor pilot to another character. What is a backdoor pilot? A backdoor pilot is either a miniseries or a proof of concept for a full series that can be broadcast on its own without having to be picked up to a full series in the end. Shows like V and the 2004 Battlestar Galactica are examples of a miniseries that ends up generating a full series order. There are also backdoor pilots where the main character finds themselves in a new location or interacting in an existing story or other adventure that is isolated from the main plot of the show. Some examples include the episode The Farm from NBC's The Office, Assignment Earth from Star Trek, Hollywood Star with Sharon Stone from an episode of T.J. Hooker, along with The Chicago Connection, another backdoor pilot from T.J. Hooker in the same season as Hollywood Star. Interesting. William Shatner is in 3 of those 4 backdoor pilots. Could he be hidden in this Mandalorian one as well? We should find out. Please be advised this review contains spoilers. If you do not want to be spoiled, please feel free to return to my review after having seen the episode. With the disclaimer out of the way, let's take a look at this backdoor pilot of The Mandalorian, Chapter 11, The Heiress. We pick up right where last week's episode ended with the Razor Crest limping to the planet Trask. But the Mandalorian finds that the guidance systems and landing array are damaged, so they have to go in manually and use the last of their fuel to slow themselves down to avoid crashing. It is a nice homage to the re-entry scene of Apollo 13. It's done fairly well. We get a little tension, and the tower control urging the Razor Crest to reduce speed is a nice touch. The ship manages to level off above the platform when its starboard engine fails and the off-balance thrust tips the ship away from the dock and into the water. It's a cute moment and adds on to the tension broken by the ship not crashing into the spaceport. The dock fishes out the Razor Crest, and the Mandalorian asks the dock worker to fix the ship as best he can. The Frog Lady searches and finds her husband Frog Guy on the dock. The Frog Guy thanks the Mandalorian, but he's all business looking for that covert. He's directed to the inn, but catches someone in a cloak watching him. She vanishes before he can get a good look at her. He pays it no mind and proceeds to the inn looking for this covert. It's a subtle setup, and it also fits into the looming doom that the Mandalorian must live with each day that he has the child. However, this season has brought in a new aspect to the Mandalorian's plight. That is the value of his Beskar. There are factions out there that want his armor, as we've seen in the first episode this season, in addition to other bounty hunters wanting the child. It's an okay added element. I like the idea of his armor being valuable and sought after by others. But that conflict can get old pretty quick, and I think should be used sparingly, or at least change up the reasons why a new party would want the Beskar besides trading it for credits. At the inn, he orders food for the child, and while the server argues that everyone seated must buy something, the Mandalorian hands over his flawn from the first episode in exchange for information. There's a cute scene where the squid living in the child's chowder attacks him. The child can't get it off his face, and the Mandalorian takes care of it while remarking about playing with food. A Quarren pirate approaches the Mandalorian willing to sell passage to the covert. This takes us to a neat scene involving a fishing boat out on the high seas. As they sail, one of the Quarrens asks if the Mandalorian has ever seen a Mamacor eat. He sells the idea as a fun sight that the child might enjoy. The Mandalorian, inferring that it may be a while until they reach the covert, humors the Quarren and allows the child to observe the feeding process. I was a little perplexed by this situation. Is this Mamacor a sea creature that they haul around with them on this boat, or are they sailing to its location? It seems like it is a creature they keep, but I am at a loss as to the purpose. It is something they apparently feed regularly. I can only assume this is a beast they use for piracy or entertainment, something in the same vein as Jabba and his Rancor. They knock the child into the water pit for the Mamacor to eat. The Mandalorian dives in to save him, thus falling into the Quarren trap of caging him in the water. They rejoice at getting his Beskar, but the Mandalorian won't make it easy as he rises to the cage, choking on water, trying to breathe and not to drown. Also, based on this shot here, the water pit in the boat doesn't look more than 8 feet deep. Unless the ship's fuselage goes further into the water than how it appears, it doesn't really give a whole lot of room for a threatening set piece. The Quarren pirates stab at the Mandalorian in an effort to drown him, but what about the child? What about the Manticore? Why isn't it feasting on the Mandalorian? Should we not be getting a set piece here where we see an underwater battle between the Mandalorian and this beast? All the pieces are in play, yet we don't get one. We don't get an underwater shot, we don't see any POV images from the Mandalorian fighting the Mamacor or searching for another means of escape. Instead, our Mandalorian behaves as if he's helpless. It's very lucky for him that 3 other Mandalorians appear and take out the Quarren pirates and free our hero. The Mandalorian conveys the creature and the child, and one of the team dives in and performs the rescue. Sadly, we don't get to see that action either, as we are stuck on the boat and get an obscured light show beneath the water just before this other Mandalorian returns with the damaged pod protecting the child. It's quite an opposite take on the Mandalorian, to be helpless and overly concerned, where in Chapter 3 he shot up an Imperial stronghold to rescue the kid. Here, his effort was nothing beyond diving into the water. It doesn't feel true to the character of the Mandalorian, and it robs the audience of an entertaining action sequence. After thanking this team for rescuing him and the child, he begins to explain his quest when the team removes their helmets. This shocks the Mandalorian, and like his encounter with Vanth in Chapter 9, he inquires about their armor and why they do not cover their faces. He is referred to as one of them, and our leader of this team introduces herself as Bo-Katan of Clan Kryze. She elaborates that she was born on Mandalore and deduces that the Mandalorian is a child of the Watch, a cult of religious zealots that left Mandalorian society to return to the ancient ways. The Mandalorian doesn't take much time to come to terms with this new information, and instead leaves Bo-Katan behind. I guess he's not even interested in finding out what they know or if they could help him. Of course, he was accused of being a religious zealot, so maybe we're dealing with a bit more of a bruised ego than a goal-focused character. Back on the dock, the Mandalorian is ambushed by other Quarrens who accuse him of killing their brothers. He's saved yet again by Bo-Katan and her team, and they offer to buy him a drink and reveal their purpose for being on this moon. Apparently, black market items stolen from their planet are being used by the Imperials to buy and sell weapons. Bo-Katan and her team are here to put an end to these transactions and steal those weapons as a means to take back their homeworld. Okay, that's a story for another TV series. The Mandalorian didn't ask for this information, it's just thrown out to us in a very ham-fisted way. The Mandalorian gives us exposition that Mandalore is a cursed world, unable to be controlled, and the Empire has done what they can to make sure it stays that way. While Bo-Katan isn't going to give up with such an obstacle, this line of conversation is taking us away from the Mandalorian's quest. The Mandalorian isn't interested in Bo-Katan's goal and reveals to her that his mission is to return the child to the Jedi and was hoping that they would help him buy Creed. Bo-Katan claims that she can help the Mandalorian, but only if he can help them with her mission. It's a quid pro quo, or another transaction, something that is part of this series' franchise. Every goal, every motivation for our character is purely transactional, a very you scratch my back, I scratch yours attitude, which is fine. But this is the third time in a row where this type of relationship is the driving force of the story progression. First, it was with Vanth, help me kill the dragon and I'll give you this armor. Next, it was the Frog Lady, take me to Trask at sublight speed and I'll connect you with other Mandalorians. And now it's with Bo-Katan, help me raid this ship and I'll tell you where to find the Jedi. The bargains are more presented to the Mandalorian instead of the Mandalorian presenting the bargain. The roles feel reversed for a main character. If anything, Bo-Katan should be the one disappointed and resistive of the Mandalorian instead of the other way around. She could have been the one to learn he was a child of the Watch and treat him like an outcast. The Mandalorian could have reflexively agreed to avoid Bo-Katan as well, but knowing his mission and responsibility to the child would compel him to try and build a bridge with these Mandalorians so he can complete his quest. He should be the one proposing a trade. Bo-Katan can reveal why she and her team are here, and the Mandalorian can make a case for joining in on their mission in exchange for the location of the Jedi. We can learn that Bo-Katan and her two partners have had difficulty pulling off these raids, and one extra warrior might make this next one they have planned easier, given that it is the biggest shipment of weapons they are going after. It is still transactional, but it makes the Mandalorian, the main character of the show, the active one in proposing the deal instead of wandering through the story and having others offer him plot points. It's a simple way to get some energy and character development in a story while keeping the pace tight. The last thing a writer wants is for their audience to view their character with a passive interest, and that is almost a guarantee when one writes the character as passive. Here, it is the guest star that is active, and it is her goal that is driving the episode, which is why I refer to Chapter 11 as a backdoor pilot to spin off a series with this character as the lead. She has a solid and easy-to-understand goal: retake Mandalore and put a new leader on the throne. That's an interesting story, one that doesn't have an easy resolution and could be a fun adventure. However, these are very short seasons and the episode length is erratic, so I have to question if it is really the best use of story time to dedicate an entire episode to a potentially new and different series by sacrificing an episode of the one we're currently watching. In my opinion, I think that the cast and premise could generate a series on its own without the helping hand of The Mandalorian. But that is me. In the next scene, we get the parameters of the mission. An Imperial freighter is loading weapons and will launch shortly. According to the reconnaissance, the freighter will stay in the shipping lanes until they eventually leave the planet. We're sort of missing a context as to why that is the case. While we learn that this moon is a black market port, would it not be in the Imperial's best interest to be discreet? Should the freighter be so easily identifiable as Imperial? Would it not make more sense for Bo-Katan to point out an unassuming freighter and make a claim that it is Imperial? Would it also not be more interesting for her to point out the freighter's captain as an Imperial commander in disguise? I find it really strange that the Imperials are rather cavalier about their actions on this planet, when we know from the previous episode that there are X-Wing patrols looking for Imperials in this sector. On top of that, if the Imperials were behaving covertly, it would convey to the audience that the Imperials still have operations in the galaxy that no one knows about that could pose a threat to the New Republic. But instead, we get this blatant, easy-to-find target for our team. To me, it feels brash and ignorant for Imperials to operate in plain sight as if the Galactic Empire is still in power. Remember early on in the first season where the Imperials were hiding in their bunker? They weren't strolling around Navarro. They were in hiding. I thought that was going to be an aspect of them during this time period, and we'd only see them in public when they were in full force. It all appears to be too convenient. The plan for the Mandalorians is to use their jetpacks to board the ship, break in, shoot up the place, and make off with the weapons. And that is pretty much how it goes. It's an action set piece, with lots of blaster fire and some explosions. Not much beyond that, except for the fact that this episode doubles down again regarding the stormtroopers being terrible shots. This is not helping your show. The last thing you want to do is neuter your enemies so that your heroes have an easier time to succeed. I mentioned this in my Chapter 8 review. If you make your stormtroopers terrible shots, what's the point in having them even in large numbers? They cease to be a credible threat. This show had a great opportunity to maintain the threat of stormtroopers as when we first saw them in Star Wars. They mopped the floor with those rebels on Leia's ship, only suffering a few casualties. They deliberately missed our heroes on the Death Star because they were letting them escape to lead them to a hidden rebel base. Why is it so difficult to make bad guys threatening and scary in entertainment? That's a big part of the fun of fearing, hating, and loving to hate bad guys. You don't want your audience to pity them or laugh at them. Intimidation helps with drama. Alas, this is the way. There is a fun moment where they're entering the cargo hold and the Imperial leader orders all the doors to be locked. His orders are to hold off the Mandalorians until the ship can enter hyperspace and rendezvous with the fleet. He thinks he's trapped the Mandalorian team and accomplished his mission until it is revealed that he trapped them in the cargo bay control room and the Mandalorians open the cargo doors, sending everyone out of the freighter to a watery death. They enter the cargo bay and open up the crates, I suspect to confirm the inventory. Bo-Katan contacts the Imperial commander thanking him for the weapons and reveals that they're going to take the rest of the ship as well. The Mandalorian is not too pleased by this news as it wasn't what he agreed to, but Bo-Katan alters the terms of the deal, stating that if he wants to find the Jedi, he will help her take the ship. We also get a little inside baseball reference, that she lost something that allowed her to rule Mandalore and that the Imperials know where it is and that she's going to get that information out to them. The Mandalorian agrees and they leave for the bridge. The Imperial commander opens a channel with Moff Gideon asking for backup, but Gideon informs him that the Empire comes first. The commander shoots his two pilots and dives the ship. The goal is to destroy the ship and the Mandalorians in the process, thus sparing the Imperials from future attacks by this group of pirates. Bo-Katan leads the way to the bridge, acknowledging that they are facing a ticking clock as it is only a matter of time before the ship crashes into the water. There is a moment where they are held back by stormtroopers with repeating blasters. The Mandalorian charges forward and throws some explosives to take them out. Don't know why he couldn't have tossed them from behind cover as he did with that smoke bomb earlier, but this is the way, and it gets our team inside the bridge. Bo-Katan takes the commander and demands to know if Gideon has the Darksaber, while the Mandalorian and the other lady Mandalorian grab the controls and level off the ship. The commander bites down on some type of electric suicide capsule before he can reveal any more information, and the mission is won. Bo-Katan tells the Mandalorian to go to a forest planet named Corvus to find Ahsoka Tano and drop her name. She leaves him with a standing offer to join her team, but the Mandalorian knows his priorities and departs to take the child to this new world. The Razor Crest is patched up, more or less, and the Mandalorian takes off, entering hyperspace to find this other character. Overall, the episode was fine. Like last week's episode, it was more of a distraction than a story that progresses further, but still had some entertaining elements. But like with last season, so far this season reinforces my claim that The Mandalorian is a series of missed opportunities. He was given a great goal for this season, find the Jedi, and I was hoping to see how the Mandalorian tracks down his targets, what type of methods he uses, and the networks he has access to. But instead, we skip all of that, and he just happens to wander into places where people that have information he needs reside. To me, it feels like the Mandalorian Mandalorian is being pulled along by the writers in this series instead of driving the story himself. It would be a little more fun to see him find clues about the Jedi, to learn what they were and where they could have been found prior to the Empire. But the show has these indirect subplots that take over the main plot with a resolution instead of a revelation from what he finds next. I think what we're seeing here is a writing team that has a story that is too short for the medium that they're telling it in, and as a result are giving us side stories and filler out of desperation instead of exploration. It's like cotton candy. You can have a lot of it all at once and it can be delicious, but once it's all consumed, you're still hungry and more of the same isn't going to fill you up. What the writers need to do is start treating each episode like a nice steak dinner. Something that will keep us satisfied until the next episode, but also make us want to come back for another helping. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have anything to add to this episode, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and never forget, it all starts with the script.